All right, what's up, everybody? This is A7X Fan Ben, and welcome to another fleet making video. So in this one, we're actually going to try out an idea, and I had the idea of using HMS Grand Temple from Ocean's Edge with Captain Jack Sparrow for kind of a nightmarish UPS combo. So UPS stands for Universal Pirate Shipping. It was a fleet strategy that, as far as I know, Darren pretty much pioneered. I don't know if he was the first one to use it, but he had some fleets on miniature trading, I think back in 2008, and essentially uses Captain Jack Sparrow's ability to trade a crew on the ship with a crew on a different ship in your fleet for a treasure from the wild island that his ship is docked at. So when the ship is given an explore action, you swap treasure on the wild island for a crew on any friendly ship. So if you have a friendly ship docked at home, you can basically send gold home. And potentially with other stuff like Hidden Cove and extra actions, eventually you can potentially get like 2 treasures home on the first turn, things like that. So it gets pretty powerful. It's like, as far as we know, and from the testing I've done, it's like the most competitive fleet archetype, I guess you could call it, or meta fleet essentially. So we're gonna get into PSM list here and start doing HMS GT UPS. We'll do the description later. I'm recording this on January 20th, so I think I'll make it public later on. So I do have a little bit of it mapped out. I think, well, most of it mapped out. I'm trying to eventually have enough fleets here, like kind of new competitive fleets, to do a tournament. So there's a lot of different ideas I have for games this year, including competitive games. And we'll go to all factions so that Captain Jack comes up. So HMS Grand Temple is perfect for this because she allows pirate crew to use their abilities. But it's important to note he won't link because he links to all pirate ships, but it's an English ship. So you won't get that link bonus that you get from using the high pang, stuff like that. So that's too bad, but it's fine. So I'm kind of surprised I didn't think of this sooner. I don't know if I had some inkling of it years ago and didn't bother doing anything with it, or if I actually didn't think of this until like this month or last month. But anyway, so we're going to do Helmsman and Explorer. So these crew are going to allow us to do what we need to do in the game. So I could do Scribe, but I'll just do a regular Explorer so it looks a little more accessible. And that's going to be all 3 cargo, because Captain Jack does not link in this case. So all 3 crew, they fill up the cargo hold, and that gets us to 24. So that's already quite a lot of points. So I'll do a quick little save just in case. And we basically are going to be getting oarsmen from home. So Core is probably the best ship to use as the transfer ship. I am a little sick of using her, and you are going to see her a lot this year in the competitive fleets I make, at least the UPS ones, but it's really hard to find a better ship for transferring crew to Captain Jack Sparrow's ship, partly because she's so cheap, but she also has good cargo. So it's more cargo than points, only 2 points for the ship. It's really easy to add the crew you need. So we're going to do the +2 gold ability on this one, similar to what you may have seen in other UPS fleets. So we're going to go with Maurice Aristide, but that would exceed the ship's point cap, so we got to add the princess as well, Ari Ara. And we're also going to add some English oarsmen, because the crew that get transferred, we want them to be able to use their abilities on the Grand Temple. So we're going to do an English oarsman. And the only question is which ones to make English and which ones not to, because we already know HMS Grand Temple has all 3 cargo spaces taken up. So the first oarsman won't take up space, so we're good there. But the second one would, but we might dump the Explorer, or a crew might be eliminated by a UT or an enemy ship ability or a boarding party or something. So we're going to make the first 2 oarsmen English, and then we're going to make the last one French. So this is something I've been doing with my UPS fleets lately. It's kind of like hedging your bets, I guess. If you make them all English, then Core if HMS Grand Temple gets eliminated and sunk or something, then Kaur doesn't have any oarsmen she can use on her own. So whatever. It's kind of debatable how to go about that, but we're going to just do 2 English oarsmen that will be sent to the GT's island, and then 1 French. So we'll see how that, I don't know. We'll see how that goes. So that gets us to 32 points. That was another 8. So yeah, it's just hard to have a cheaper combo that works this well. I guess you could do Banshee's Cry with Jenny Gallows. That would be 6. But then you would still need Jonah in order to have an oarsman, because that would get you to 4 points on the ship. And then the real issue is points are so tight in a 40-point build, and it's even tighter in competitive play because every point you spend matters in competitive play. If it's a casual game, you know, your last 5 points or 10 points of a 40-point build you might just not care, but in competitive fleets, you got to optimize everything because you're just trying to win, basically. You're trying to get the most gold as fast as possible and compete with like really good fleets. So Banshee's Cry plus Jenny Gallows is 6. So to get to 3 oarsmen like we have here, that would be 9. So this saves us a point. So I don't think there's a better ship in the game for this combo to be able to have +2 and also minimize how many points you're spending on the overall setup. So here we can get +2 with an unloading ship and 3 crew to swap for only 8 points total, that's really tough to beat. So even Banshee's Cry would bump it to 9 for the same, you know, the +2 and just as many crew to transfer. So and there's not a Jolly Mon doesn't work. Anyway, I'm not going to spend too much time on it, and the other 2-point ships have less cargo, I think. So that gets us to 32, and then we're going to add Hidden Cove. So that's kind of a given. It's not, events are not in PSM list yet, so I'm just going to put that in the fleet description. So let me just do a quick note about that. So for 2 points for Hidden Cove, save it. So we're at 34 then. So then we only have 11 points left. And if you've seen other UPS fleets, you might not be surprised by this final stuff. We're probably going to do Patagonia with Robinson and Micron. So we still need, especially because we still need the +5. I'm just assuming we'll get a +5 in there, but we don't have one yet. And there's not really room for one. I guess maybe we could add one. No, we can't on core. Yeah, I think I talked about this in another fleet making video. Normally I would think about Jules de Sissy on the Leon, but Al Ra forces each crew to take up cargo space. So that means her, Aristide, and the oarsmen would all take up cargo. So then you're already at 3. So you can't add Jules de Sissy to the Leon. So therefore we'll need to add them on a different ship. Grand Temple's already full, so we can't add the English +5 Bratley to the Temple. So that just makes it even more likely we'll add Patagonia, that cheesy setup that you've probably seen in other competitive fleets, but it's effective, it's wicked good, and it's only 10 points. So then we'll even have 1 point left to work with, which will probably just be an oarsman, probably another oarsman for core, probably an English one that would start on the home island. And that's another thing. Core would only start the game with 1 oarsman aboard, and then the other English oarsman and the French oarsman, they would both be on the home island. So just to clear that up. And yeah, I don't think there's the various options we could do for the last 11 points. I mean, we could do Longshanks, we could do Banshee's Cry, we could do another Gold Runner, but one thing with this fleet is it's usually best to just optimize the UPS ship as much as possible so you can send more coins home. I guess in this case, we only have 1 ship at home that can unload these coins. So that is an interesting factor. It's going to be hard to get another one. I guess Jolly Mon might work. There is a chance we're going to add Jolly Mon for the last ship, and then we can send 2 coins home. So the way I'm thinking about it is, with UPS, we're going to Hidden Cove the Grand Temple out to a wild island. She's going to redock, explore, send a coin home with Captain Jack, and then that's only 1 action. So then she can explore the island again and send another coin home. But if core wants to bump up, well, there's different ways to do it. Core is going to be full on cargo once she drops a crew for the first coin. And then in order to unload the first coin, she's going to either have to explore the home island or redock at the home island. Either way, that uses her action for the turn. The coin actually goes to your home island, gets plussed up with Aristide. But then the core is out of actions. So even if Grand Temple then explores her wild island again and is able to send a coin to core can't unload it right away. So, which isn't a huge problem, but there's at least a chance that the first coin would be a 1 or a 0, and +2 is not going to get us to 4 gold, which is how much it costs to build Paradis de la Mer, for example, and I think Ramsgate too. So just in terms of gold optimization and fort choice in building forts, I think it's best if we have another ship at home to unload. I'm just kind of game planning this in my head. I'm trying to do a little more like brainstorming on the fleet videos, so I don't just like come with all the material prepared. So let me know if you prefer it to be kind of scheduled out in advance, or if you like the more brainstorming sessions where I kind of just talk about it. It's a little more rambly and less to the point, but we'll see. So for the last 11, Patagonia, Robinson, Micron, blah, blah, blah. And then if we do Jolly-Mon, that's only a 1-point ship. And then she could load up the English oarsman. She has a cargo space, so it doesn't matter if it can't use its abilities because she doesn't have anything else taking up cargo space. So she could load up an oarsman. The only issue there is the crew on any friendly ship. Oh yeah, the crew doesn't get loaded by the ship. So yeah. So the Grand Temple doesn't have to load the second oarsman that would put her over on cargo. She would only load the first one via the free transfer rules. So one of the oarsmen on this first turn, if this first turn goes well, the second oarsman would just be on the wild island just sitting there, which is fine. So, and then it's just like one of those fleets where it's going to be very intense in the early game, and then it's going to, you might have to kind of scramble. There's not enough points to add a lot of oarsmen, so there's only so many transfers you can do. I might just have to play this fleet out to see what's best for optimizing the oarsmen, like the volume and like how many coins you're trying to trade home per turn. Because if we only have core is the only swapping ship, then that second coin from the Grand Temple on the first turn, that stays on core to start your second turn of the game, which is a problem because then you have to unload it just to make room for another oarsman. Because although Captain Jack, the ship you're swapping from, his ship, you don't have to load the crew onto that ship. But the crew has to be on a ship to make the swap. So the crew does have to be on the core. So therefore, if she starts turn 2 with a coin aboard, the second coin from turn 1, that she didn't have an action to unload, then it becomes problematic very quickly, because then she would have to use her action to unload the coin just to load an oarsman to do another transfer. So I guess that's okay. You would just have a delayed, it's a little risky because then you'd have a delayed coin unload essentially. So then it might give your opponent an opportunity to board the core and steal a coin that's sitting there while your opponent takes their turn. So I don't really know the best way to do this or mitigate the issue. I think I'm probably going to add Jolly-Mon to the fleet. So it's either we add Jolly-Mon for the last point, or we add another oarsman on the home island. And then core does have 4 crew to swap. The problem there is she can realistically only swap 1 per turn. Because as soon as she swaps 1, the coin takes up that space and she can't load another oarsman. So it's a little bit unfortunate. You could, maybe there's a way to do this with a free crew transfer that I'm not thinking about. I should probably think harder about that. Aristide, if you dump Aristide, that makes room for a cargo space. This is where it gets crazy. So let's say Grand Temple, let's go back to the beginning. Grand Temple swaps, puts 1 on core. oarsman from Core goes to Grand Temple. Core now has Aristide, Al Ra, and a coin aboard. She does use her action for the turn to explore the home island, unload to get the +2. And then, so that all happens. And then, this might work actually. Might work reasonably well. And then free crew transfer to dump Aristide on the home island, load up an oarsman, and then, well, actually he could stay there, I guess, but I don't know. I think I'm thinking too hard about this, but it's kind of interesting how the free transfer rule affects UPS like tactical strategy on a turn-by-turn basis. But anyway, so we're gonna add Patagonia, Micron. We need Robinson to get him aboard because he's more than the ship costs, so we're gonna add him. He's just like Princess Auri Ra, but for the English. So, and then we're gonna add Bratley as well. So that uses up our limit crew option, but it gets us the +5 we need. So the +5 would be used to bring in probably Hidden Cove, and then maybe like 3 oarsmen or whatever, something like that probably. So that looks good. And then we'll try Jollymon. I think the first version of this fleet is gonna have Jollymon, and then she might load one of these oarsmen. So then basically the second coin that the Grand Temple sends home on the first turn via Captain Jack Sparrow will not get +2'd via Aristide. Other versions of UPS use less points for the UPS ship. Like Hai Peng saves you 2 points right away. Banshee's Cry saves you even more points. So therefore there'd be more points in the fleet to use something like the Bonnie Liz or some other ship like Lizard from Fire and Steel that allows you to swap Aristide to the other ship, and then you get +2 on the second coin because the free transfer rule is used in between sending coins home. But in this case, I kind of want to just be able to send home 2 coins on the first turn and get them both unloaded. So Jollymon should allow us to do that. She'll load up one of the oarsmen, probably the other English one. So there's a chance that going into the second round, we're only going to have 1 oarsman to swap via Captain Jack Sparrow. So that's not very many for the rest of the game, but it is a fleet that tries to get, a lot of gold, like preferably 10+ in the first turn or 2. And then from there, we might use fort control to try to control the board. And obviously HMS Grand Temple is a huge threat. So especially with Micron, giving her a second action every turn, she basically has 6s speed and the ability to shoot up to 12 shots in a turn. So pretty devastating weapon. You may have seen my past HMS Grand Temple fleets. I've made 4 of them and I might make more. The first one is pretty competitive. The other ones might be, but I just haven't used them yet, or at least hardly at all. So we'll add some forts to fill this out. So Paradise is probably the best option. Super good defensive ability, 4 gold. So we're definitely going to put Ramsgate into the mix too. And the nice thing about adding Jollymon is it adds some fort options to the fleet here. So I think I'm not going to add St. Pierre or Fort Brompton. I might later on, but I don't think I'm going to bother right now. I'll do Dead Man's Point here. I guess I'll do the Devil's Maw as well, because now that we have a pirate ship in the fleet via the Jollymon, we're able to add pirate forts. They're both pretty good. So, all right, and that takes care of the fleet, at least most of it. So I'm going to save it. Remember, with Hidden Cove, we're at 45, so we're maxed out. But there's more to think about. So this is one of the themes I want to have this year, is thinking about the setup rules and how they affect play and strategy, tactics, all that, and also fleet making. So in a standard game, islands have to be 3L to 6L apart. So like a question you ask yourself, how far apart should these islands be for this game or for this fleet? Like how far apart does this fleet want the islands? So HMS Grand Temple is a big threat, so she can probably take care of herself fine, especially with Micron. But you still want to have time to send coins home on the first and second turns. Maybe after that too, but it might be hard after the second turn because we're going to run out of oarsmen to swap. You might swap Aristide. You might send Aristide out to an island and just not get the +2 on one of the coins you send home. But I'm not really going to get into that yet because that's just game dependent. That's not really a plan. That's kind of if that's what happens during game, that's fine, but whatever. So Grand Temple wants some time to do her thing with Captain Jack Sparrow. So we're probably I was thinking about putting the islands around 4L apart, and that's partly based on the speed of the ship. So if we send home 2 coins from the first island and we want to go to a second island, maybe because the coins stink. So maybe the first island isn't that good. And even with the +2 bonuses, we're going to be nowhere near 16 gold, even if we get all 4 coins sent home from this first wild island. So how far would it be to a second wild island? We don't want it to be more than 6S because that's our max speed for a turn with the Grand Temple, which is really fast. It's not quite like Hai Peng doubled, but it's still quite fast. So I know that SSS speed or triple S is a little bit farther than L+L. It's a little bit faster, and it's like maybe half a centimeter longer. I'm not going to get into the millimeter measurements right now. Maybe in a future video I'll do some of the math, but I'm not going to worry about it. So SSS times 2 is a little bit more than 4L. So therefore, I think the island's about 4L apart. We kind of want to place the islands as far apart as possible to where an opponent would hopefully take longer to get to us, but without putting them so far apart that Grand Temple can't reach a second wild island on turn 2, for example. And that might be the case anyway, just based on the setup. There's a lot of variables here, because based on where an opponent's home island is, we might use Hidden Cove and dock the Grand Temple away from an opponent, but also therefore away from a nearby wild island where even with 6S, you might not reach a second wild island on the second turn, but it might be worth it because an opponent might have a harder time attacking Grand Temple on round 1. So there's a lot of variables here that you can't really account for. It's not like set in stone that we're going to have the islands 4L apart, but I think 3L would be a little too close. Like there's no point in having them that close because Grand Temple's max speed is basically more than 4L. And I think 6L, 5L, 6L, 5L I might have to measure out to see how far that is compared to, and you don't have to do exactly L distance for like island measurements. You could do 4.5L or whatever. Usually island measuring isn't this precise anyway. So, but I think we're trying to be as meta and competitive as possible. So we want to optimize as much as we can. So I think a little bit farther than 4L would be good. For example, if it's 6L, if we max out the distance, then we make it harder for Grand Temple to get to another island. So that's probably not the best. So especially if this fleet is facing other competitive fleets, and then we face a Hai Peng that is able to get to another island really fast. So, and then for terrain, whirlpools could be good because we have Micron. So something to keep in mind with whirlpools, they end your move action as soon as you go through them. But if you have extra actions available, which we do via Lord Micron on the Patagonia, you're able to get a second action, after the whirlpool travel from the first action. So that can be really good in a fleet like this where we have a guaranteed extra action. We don't even need to roll a 5 or 6 or a 6 or anything. So for example, Grand Temple will go through whirlpool and then just get Microned into a second action and slam an opponent maybe on the 3rd turn or the 4th round or whatever. So I think whirlpools would be a good thing to add. So I would probably put 2 whirlpools down there, and just depends on the setup where they'd be. You could put them, I probably wouldn't put them near my home island because I have a couple fragile ships with very essential crew for the fleet right here. So based on where I think my opponent will put my home island, I wouldn't put a whirlpool near there. This is another thing where there's so many variables, it's kind of a crapshoot. So I wouldn't overthink it too much. This is more for like game time when you're actually doing the setup. But ideally you'd have a whirlpool probably pretty close to the first wild island you explore, but it's gonna be hard to like fully optimize it because you place terrain before home islands are chosen, of course. So whatever. And then a fog bank would be good just to hide out. Eventually, you might need fog to like put some of these ships in. Like Patagonia would be good in a fog bank. Grand Temple. At some point, if the game is getting desperate or you can't get enough gold via Captain Jack Sparrow, Grand Temple might dump some of her crew to load up. She might dump the Explorer and Sparrow to load up on gold and then make a run for it. So either way, a fog bank is generally good for UPS fleet because usually they're not this strong on combat. So in this case, it's stronger on combat than like the UPS fleets with the high ping and stuff like that. So anyway, but I wouldn't do reefs would hurt the Grand Temple, and Sargasso Seas would make it really hard for the Jolly-Mon or the Coeur du Lion to run gold if they do that at some point. So I wouldn't do those. Icebergs just kind of annoy me, so I haven't really ever seen icebergs in a competitive game actually, so maybe I'll try to utilize that at some point, but it's probably pretty hard to do that. So probably whirlpools mostly, and then a fog bank or two. And then coins is something I didn't figure out at all. I might figure that out after the fact. I don't want this video to take super long. I think for coins generally, we're going to be going with like defensive UTs and maybe something like Barbary Banner. I might just kind of brainstorm. I'll brainstorm a few. This isn't necessarily final. When you see the game getting played, I might use this fleet next week or sometime after that. I don't know. But you might not see these UTs when I actually play the fleet, because this could definitely change. So homemade flag reduces cannon ranges to S against the ship. Really good if you have a canceller, but also just a decent ability. Or if you have S range cannons, I guess, too. And then Barbary Banner is like, it's like a 5 coin if you don't, if it's not loaded by a Corsair ship. So I don't really know what else to. Neptune's figurehead is an option, but I feel like I'm more likely to sink an opponent's ship than have the Grand Temple be sunk. So I guess I don't really want to include that. So I'll just put those for now. For coins, I think the way I would do the regular coins, I'd probably end up with 3 UTs. So for the 8 coins, we need 15 gold. I don't think I want it to be too UT heavy. I don't know if I'm like forgetting something, but I'd probably just do like one more like semi-defensive UT, something that doesn't take up card space, because Grand Temple is going to be full. So I might even do like Karmic Idol or something. Probably not, but we'll see. And I just don't think it needs too many UTs. And then for the other 5 coins, I'd probably just do 5 threes to get me to the 15 gold. And part of the reason for that is with the +2 ability, any of the coins I find that I contributed with +2 will be 5. And that's the maximum fort cost of the forts I have. So that's kind of the reasoning there. So if for some reason I feel like I really want to build the Devil's Maw early in the game, if I find any of my threes with the +2, that'll be enough to build the Devil's Maw. So kind of just some overall coin strategy. I don't think the coin strategy for this fleet will be super integral to how it performs though. So I'll probably look through the UTs a little bit more, but I don't want to do that for a while right now. One thing with this fleet, I'm going to test out not using the more than half endgame trigger. So Wolf has talked about it a bunch, and he kind of reiterated it in a recent Rules for Thought thread on Pirates with Ben. He talked about more than half endgame trigger is dumb and should not be used at all. So I'm going to try that out. I don't know how much I'll like it. I'm not saying he's wrong at all. I'm sure he's probably right about it. I'm just not used to disregarding that for competitive play. Because whenever I do 40-point competitive standard, I don't, you wouldn't use house rules because it's standard game. So it'll be interesting to do away with that end game condition. So then either one player is eliminated and can't be given future move actions, or all available gold has been unloaded to home islands. So the interesting thing about that is it might make forts even more important, because then if you can't just win right away with 16 or more, then naturally it's going to extend the game, because then even if you do have 16, you keep playing. which could be interesting in terms of both gold bonuses and forts. So we'll see how it goes. I don't know if I'm going to do a lot of competitive games without that endgame trigger, but I'm going to try it out in this fleet's first game and see how it goes. So anyway, I think that pretty much covers it. So I'm going to save the fleet. I guess I already saved it, but I'd be really interested to see what you think of this fleet. I guess question of the day is, do you think it'll do better than the other UPS fleets of the past, like UPS 5 with the Zeus, UPS 2, that's like the best fleet I've ever seen, things like that. I'm a little worried about the crew swaps, running out of oarsmen and also like running out of +2 options, but maybe the combat capability of the Grand Temple will make up for that, where she'll be such a monstrous threat in a 40-point game that your opponent might not want to challenge her, and then she's able to either run gold herself or capture an opposing enemy gold runner, and even if you get crappy coins, that might make up the difference and allow you to win either way. So, and also I think building a fort on a wild island the Grand Temple's already docked at is like, that's about as much of a stronghold as you can imagine in a 40-point game. Imagine Paradise and the Grand Temple in the same spot, basically. So I think it'll do pretty well. We'll see what happens, but I don't know if it's going to be part of a tournament or not. I'm kind of doing some one-off 40-point 1v1 games as kind of just for fun, but also I'm kind of in the back of my head keeping the fleet results in mind and the results of the games in mind, to kind of think of it as like they're almost a little bit like a play-in or like audition to see if they might participate in a tournament at some point. Because I want to do at least one tournament this year, probably pretty soon, and it's probably going to be 4 fleets, and I might do an 8-fleet tournament, but that's a lot. That's a much bigger undertaking. So we'll see what happens, but I think it'll do well. So question of the day is, do you think it'll be better or worse than other UPS fleets generally? And feel free to like, comment, subscribe. There's affiliate links in the description where you can purchase from eBay. I'll get a small commission that would help out Pirates with Ben and the channel in my efforts to restart the game. So thanks again for watching. This is A7X Fan Ben signing off for now.